Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologiae, prima pars question 2, which has to do with the existence of God, Thomas Aquinas will tell us that there's 5 main ways to argue for or to reveal the existence of God to the interested, querying person. And the first of these is actually from what we can translate as change, or a little bit more literally, motion, ex parte motus, right? And we'll talk about what motus means in just a moment, because it's important to create a dissociation between our present-day understanding of motion and the broader sense that it has. But he also says, interestingly enough, that this way is the most evident or obvious or clear manifestior. So that's why he starts with the first way. It's not set up like, well, if you don't buy this, then maybe you'll buy this. All of these are sort of complementary ways of arguing for the existence of something that he'll say in the end, this is what everybody calls God, right? And we'll get to that in just a bit. So motion or change, motus, includes all sorts of changing, and it's not just like billiard balls hitting each other and transferring a certain amount of force to each other, or, to use an example that Thomas will bring up a little bit later in this thing, talking about a stick, a bacula, needing to be moved by a hand. If the hand does not move the stick won't move anything else, right? So it includes that kind of motion, but it also includes changing state, coming into being, being corrupted or breaking down into things, movement in place, all those sorts of things. And so he'll use another example of fire causing wood to become actually hot, in this way causing change, causing motus in the wood. So what is change? So Thomas is going to be using an Aristotelian metaphysical framework in which what it is to change is to go from potentiality, potentia, possibility you could also say, or power, right? Those are all ways of translating this. A capacity is another way. Going from potential to, now it's translated in different ways, and I do want to mention that the Blackfriars translation here, not the best, because it talks about perfection. In Latin, it's actually actus, which we can translate as the cognate act, but also as actuality, right? Activity is kind of connected to this as well. So going from potential to actuality. And, many things have the potential for many different changes. Our bodies are a prime example, very complicated structure, capable of being, in general, healthy or sick, right? These opposites that we can put together. But then, healthy exists in many different ways, and you can be healthier. We'll put all that aside for the moment. Hopefully you've got your head around this notion that what's happening when something is changing is it's moving from a potentiality that it has to an actuality of it, more of it being what it is, you could say. Now, how does this happen? So Thomas points out that a thing by itself cannot move itself from potentiality to actuality. It requires something else to do that. And we call this causation, right? And it can happen in a number of different ways. The second main way of proving God's existence is going to rely on what we call efficient causality, but there's also, for Thomas Aquinas, as for any Aristotelian, material causality, final causality, formal causality. All of these are connected together in interesting ways. So that's all set up. That's contained within this article for the argument that's going to be made. So the argument itself goes like this. We notice that something in the world is moved or changed. Aliqua movere in hoc mundo, right? And, you could translate it as just something in a very generic sense. We could say, listen, we see things, plural, in the process of change, including ourselves, right? But all these other things around us. Sometimes we even make things change. I eat the breakfast. It's down in my stomach, gets dissolved and digested, and it becomes more me, right? That's being transformed in the process. Now, Aquinas says we can grasp this with our senses. He's not saying that we can grasp cause and effect with our senses. He's saying that what our senses take in is the fact that things do change. How do they change? Here's where we start to move beyond just sensibility, and we start to take on a metaphysical viewpoint about the world. One that is fairly commonsensical. We could say that scientists also believe this, and so do all sorts of other people. No effect without some sort of other thing, which is a cause, which is taking something in the world that's moved from its potential to actuality, from its potentia to actus. So there's something else. He says, ab alio, by something else, right? So he says that to cause change is to bring into being what was previously only able to be. This can only be done by something that already is. So there's a priority to the causer compared to the caused or changed or moved, the effect, right? So this is something that is in being, has actuality, and it's causing something else to have that. So let's look at the example that he uses now. Fire and wood. He says that fire is actually hot, right? It says, sicut calidum in actu. It is hot in act, right? And then the fire is touched to a piece of wood, a lignum, and the wood is hot in potential or in potency, in potentia, right? It's not yet hot. We took it in from outside, from the woodshed, right? So we put the wood on the fire is touching it. Now the wood is able to get hot and combust. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we could talk about going on there. But you don't want to get too far into the weeds with this. So it causes the wood, which is able to be hot, which has the potential for that, to become actually hot. In this way, it causes change in the wood. So, prime example there that I think is fairly intuitive to wrap your head around. And then we could say, all right, well, what caused this something else? It didn't make itself just be what it is any more than this thing did. It didn't bring its own potentiality to actuality. So there has to be another thing, another cause behind that, and so on and so on. And we can go back very far with these sets, these matrices of causes. Could we go back endlessly to infinity, as we say? And Thomas says, hoc autem non est procedere in infinitum, right? What does that mean? So this process cannot go back, procedere, cannot go on in infinitum, endlessly, without any sort of limit. Why not? So here's an interesting part of the argument, right? It's not just, well, you just can't go back to infinity. Because you never get the entire process started if you're just kicking the metaphysical can all the way down the road. You need to have some sort of first mover or changer, which is the bringing of other things out of their potentiality into actuality. That's what it does, right? So there has to be a primum movens, a first mover, is how this is said. Or else, nothing happens. And here's where he brings up the example of the stick and the hand. It is only when acted on by the first cause, right, that the intermediate causes will produce any change. If the hand doesn't move the stick will not move anything else. So there has to be some first cause of change, right? Ergo necesse est devenere. We have to arrive at or derive ad aliquod primum movens, some sort of first mover, quod a nullo movetur, which is not moved by anything else. And here we get the famous formula. This all understand as or by, however you want to translate it, God hoc omnes intellegunt Deum. So one way of understanding God would be as this first mover or changer, lacking which no other movement or change could really be taking place. But we know that it is taking place, so therefore there must be such a first mover, and that is God.